Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse opened in theaters last night at preview screenings, and it did absolutely spectacular. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your thoughts on why Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is doing so well at the box office, even compared to other major comic book blockbusters, compared to the performance of the previous film. What do you make of all of it? And let's just dive straight into the numbers here. And Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse made 17 million plus on Thursday preview screenings. So its technical opening day is today, the 2nd of June, but movies have started to play the night before. Over the last decade, that's become commonplace, and maybe sometimes in the afternoon. So it's not a full day being open. Today's the technical opening day, so they call them preview screenings the day before, and those numbers are kind of factored into the Friday opening numbers. It's very commonplace and has been for about the last decade. This is the second best night ever for a preview screening opening night ever for an animated film, with $17 million behind The Incredibles 2, which was just a box office behemoth, the sequel to a wildly successful film that had a great reputation. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse opened 4.5 times better than Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse made $3.5 million at preview screenings 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, preview screenings were still commonplace, did this all the time. And so movie came out and it did like 30 million opening weekend. It did fine. It went on to become a very profitable film, but 3.5 million at the opening screenings, 35 million opening weekend. This is 4.5 times greater at 17 million. That is what every producer, every studio executive loves to see, 4.5x better when there's not like any substantial like changes in the market, changes in the production, or budget or anything. It just did that much better because there's that much more interest. Point of reference, Spider-Man Homecoming, 15.4 at the opening previews. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, 11.6 million at the previews. Venom, the first one, 10 million at the Thursday night previews. It did better than all of those. And then it also kind of throws in here, Spider-Man 3 did 10 million in its Thursday preview screenings. That's a misleading number because 15 years ago that they didn't do Thursday night screenings the way that they do now. That's a different, the article mentions that, but that's actually doesn't help much. So let's get back to our comparison. This is the second best preview screening for an animated film of all time, behind The Incredibles 2 that had 18.5 million. What was that, 4 years back? So just a little bit more, just a few years back, that movie went on to open to $182.6 million. Fantastic opening weekend in any way you look at it. So if you're looking for patterns, how will the movie perform? You look at the opening Thursday night, usually gives you an idea of the trajectory of the opening weekend. So if you look at The Incredibles 2, 18.5, opened at 182.6, 10x. Its opening Thursday night is what it made over the weekend. But I don't think that's the best point of reference because animated films usually have lower Thursday night preview numbers because they're family movies. So you're talking about a lot of parents and kids. That's what drives the market for The Incredibles, for a Pixar film. And parents most of them aren't like me. And they're probably not like you, where you're kind of a little bit more diehard about movies than the average Joe. And average Joes don't get off work on a Thursday night and then load up the kids and go to the movies and have their kids go to bed after their bedtime. So animated films tend to not have these gigantic front-loaded opening weekends the way that other genres do. Flip side to that, comic book movies tend to have very front-loaded opening weekends because it's a lot of teenagers, high schoolers, college students. I mean, everybody loves comic book movies, but there's a lot of 15 to 25-year-olds. I know, because that's the main demographic that watches my videos. And that group of people, they have FOMO, they're worried about spoilers, they just love these franchises, and so they tend to rush out opening night. So they tend to be very front-loaded Thursday nights versus something like The Incredibles, which would have a fantastic Saturday and Sunday when parents don't have work and the whole family goes to the movies. So I would expect that this movie's probably over the weekend not going to do 180 million like The Incredibles, or 170 million to follow that trajectory, multiply it by 10, 170. It's probably not going to do that. Let's look at another movie that came out just a month ago, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Guardians 3, its opening night was 17.5 million, right on par with what it's looking like Across the Spider-Verse is going to be at, and it opened to $117 million opening weekend. So not that 10 times that The Incredibles did, 10 times for the weekend that it did Thursday night previews. It's like 6 times, something like that, what it did opening night. So if you play that out, then we're looking at Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse doing something around 110 million. Other things to consider in here, early projections for Across the Spider-Verse were saying it was going to open at 70 to 90 million. That was pretty consistent, 70 to 90 million, which those numbers right there immediately are fantastic. The first movie only opened to $35 million. So the low end for what people are projecting this movie's going to do over the weekend before these opening night numbers was already double what the previous movie did, and the previous movie was profitable. That's what every producer wants to see. That's what every director wants to see. That's what the studio heads want to see. That's a great trajectory. Low end is double. That's great. But that's the low end, and that was a few days ago, and we're seeing these numbers already being like, I think 90 million is low. I think we're going to get like 110. But I also think all bets are kind of off here. Other things to factor in here, critical reaction and audience scores. Critic score right now is like at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience scores, we only have one night's worth of feedback. It's also fantastic. Probably going to be an A cinema score. I'm making numbers up. Actually, let me look that up real quick to see if they have put that out yet. So at the time I'm filming this, they don't have a cinema score yet. I might see if they've put it out by tomorrow morning when I'm going to post this video, and let's see if I'm able to cut that in or if this is just an odd tangent that goes nowhere.
It's the next morning. I just checked. They do not have the score for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, but they have the score for The Boogeyman? I don't get it.
But the audience scores are great. The audience scores for Guardians 3 were great. They led to great legs. I think it's really tough to predict with this particular movie because it feels like such uncharted territory. It's so unique in the space because it's an animated movie and they perform one way, and it's a comic book movie and they perform one way. And if you compare it to the previous movie in this franchise, it's already doing double. Well, actually, with opening day, it's doing 4.5. It's doing way better. For the opening weekend, doubling the previous number seems like easy lock. That's going to happen, obviously. But is it going to be 3 times? Is it going to be 4 times? Is it going to be 4.5 times what the previous one did? It's kind of uncharted territory, but here's what you can see the pattern in all of this. They put out a great animated film 5 years ago that people loved. It was new, it was different. Miles Morales wasn't as known in the general public, and so the movie did good, but it didn't do fantastic. The word of mouth over the last 5 years has been great. My kids watch that movie every couple of months. We watch it all the time. It's a great animated movie. It's a great Spider-Man movie. It's just a great movie. It has fantastic word of mouth, and with several years, now Miles Morales is becoming much more mainstream. He's had his own Spider-Man game in a very popular PlayStation franchise. Spider-Gwen has become mainstream. They're characters that you can play in Fortnite. And so they've become very popular characters. Like to my kids, like they're kind of, yeah, I mean, I like Miles. I like Spider-Gwen. I like Peter Parker. Like they've become that level of mainstream. Those aren't like the B team anymore for a generation of people. For a generation, they're all kind of on the same level. And now we have a movie that has all of them. Add to that, multiverse, red hot these days. No Way Home made it like, if 5 years ago, Into the Spider-Verse starts playing this game, and we're like, that was cool. No Way Home makes it super popular. And then this movie, you really felt like they're going to deliver. This isn't going to be Multiverse of Madness. This one's actually going to deliver, and it does. It's not pandery, but it does, like, oh, look at all the cool stuff, and it's built into the plot. It's built into the lore. It makes sense. It's all in there. So you put all these pieces together, and then the reviews for this one are great. The word of mouth is great. So people are loving it. You make a great movie 5 years ago that people love, they want more of it. You take the time to do it right, and a couple of the right things happen over the last 5 years, making Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen even more popular characters. What do you get? Your movie makes a lot more money. And it comes back to, if you respect the audience, if you make a great film, you don't just assume people will show up because it's multiverse. You don't just assume people will show up because it's Spider-Man, but you get people that love these characters, that love animation, that are doing groundbreaking things, and the audience trusts them. People show up. And there's a huge discussion about superhero fatigue, especially back in February and March, where Quantumania opens big and then just crumbles second weekend. Shazam 2 opens dead on arrival. It's like, is there superhero fatigue? Coy Jandero, someone I met at MegaCon a couple months back, he put it really well. There's mediocrity fatigue. We're tired of mediocre superhero movies. We've seen them all before. It's not good enough that you just gave me a superhero movie. We need something special. We need something good that's worthy of my time, that I trust that you're going to deliver something good. People trusted the creators of Into the Spider-Verse to create a new film that's exciting and worth seeing, and they delivered it. Animation, Spider-Man story, movie in general, comic book movie in general, it does all of them. And so it's killing it at the box office. Let me know your thoughts on all of that down below. Thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.